Arcadian Vanguard presents The Wrestling News in your daily wrestling newscast for Friday, April 21st, 2023. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin with last night's Ring of Honor on Honor Club, which was taped last Wednesday night before Dynamite and featured 3 championship matches. AAA Mega Champion El Hijo del Vikingo appeared on the show, turning back the challenge of Gringo Loco. ROH World Women's Champion Athena bested Heather Reckless, and the ROH World TV Champion Samoa Joe successfully defended against Colt Cabana in the main event. In other results, Konosuke Takeshita defeated Lee Moriarty, the Kingdom defeated Action Andretti and Darius Martin in the opener, Penta El Zero Miedo defeated Nick Comoroto, and Willow Nightingale went over Robin Renegade. In ratings news, last Wednesday's episode of AEW Dynamite drew the second lowest total audience of the year so far and was tied for the third lowest key demographic rating according to Showbuzz Daily. A total of 830,000 viewers tuned into TBS for the show, down over 4% from last week's audience of 866,000. The rating in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic was .28, even with last week, and representing 365,000 viewers, according to WrestleNomics. The episode ranked in 7th place for the night in the key demo on cable TV, down from 6th place for last week's show. In Impact Wrestling news, new Impact World Champion Steve Maclin took part in a changing of the guard ceremony on last night's episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV, which was taped last Monday night in Toronto. The ceremony was intended to celebrate his win of the vacant title last weekend at Rebellion. Also during the segment, Impact President Scott D'Amore announced that Maclin would be defending his title against PCO at Under Siege on May 26th. PCO then attempted to rush the ring and attack Maclin.
He won that match! Alright, now look at this! PCO going after the private security!
Dispatching the mercenaries who are attempting to do so of Maclin, who are now putting the beat down on the French-Canadian Frankenstein.
Alright, look at this, a private security force attacking PCO, Maclin barking orders.
Maclin looking to send a quick message now, some hardware being introduced.
A table being tossed into the ring, PCO continues to be beaten down.
Send an immediate message to the first challenger to Steve Maclin's reign as champion.
In other results, the Motor City Machine Guns and Kushida defeated Jonathan Gresham, Speedball Mike Bailey, and X-Division champion Trey Miguel. Digital Media champion Joe Hendry retained against Sheldon John of Big Brother Canada, and the newly returned Nick Aldis addressed his return to Impact and his plans to dethrone Steve Maclin in a promo segment.
I know what it feels like to carry that weight, because you're carrying the weight of every single person in here, every crew member, every roster member, every fan around the world. And when your legs, as big as they may be, start to wobble just a little bit under that weight, when you start to crumble just a little bit under that weight, you better watch out, because I'm going to be there ready to pounce. Because when I get my shot at the World Championship, I'm ready to usher in the oldest era of Impact Wrestling.
In injury news, MLW World Champion Alexander Hammerstone was injured during the War Chamber match that aired on MLW Underground last Tuesday, according to a report from Fightful. Hammerstone reportedly may have suffered a torn groin during the match, which was taped on April 6th. The champion was still able to work the MLW Battle Riot 5 tapings 2 days later, where he defeated Mr. Thomas. His most recent status is described as day-to-day. The champion was forced to leave the War Chamber match early, which caused the finish to be changed. Hammerstone has held the MLW World title for more than a year and a half. In news from outside the ring, Ted DiBiase Jr. pleaded not guilty yesterday to charges that he took part in a conspiracy to misappropriate millions of dollars in federal funding intended for the low-income and needy in the state of Mississippi, according to WAPT ABC Channel 16 News in Jackson, Mississippi. He could potentially face decades of imprisonment if convicted. According to a federal indictment unsealed yesterday, the third-generation wrestler and son of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, is alleged, along with accused co-conspirators John Davis, Christy Webb, Nancy New, and others, to have committed fraud in obtaining money from the Emergency Food Assistance Program and the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Program for their own benefit. Also named in the lawsuit, though not directly in the conspiracy, is Hall of Fame former NFL quarterback Brett Favre. According to the indictment, DiBiase is alleged to have accepted fraudulent contracts awarded to his companies, Priceless Ventures LLC and Family Orientum LLC, which were reportedly issued by Davis in his capacity as executive director of the Mississippi Department of Human Services. The millions of dollars allegedly awarded to DiBiase's companies, ostensibly for social services which he never provided, were instead reportedly used by DiBiase to buy vehicles and put a down payment on a house, among other personal uses. The charges against DiBiase include 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and theft of funds, 6 counts of wire fraud, and 4 counts of money laundering. He potentially faces 5 years in prison for conspiracy, a maximum penalty of 20 years for each count of wire fraud, and 10 years for each count of theft of funds and money laundering. DiBiase was released on bond yesterday afternoon after his hearing. His trial is set for Monday, June 19th. And before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can also be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page. And for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast. And remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.